Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. I remember really clearly one time sitting with a group of high school students. There's probably 10 to 15 of us sitting around. We were talking about faith. We were talking about the things that we believed. We were even expressing some of our doubts and concerns. And I remember one of the students said pretty bluntly, he said, "I just don't believe any of it. I'm not willing to believe something I can't see. And what if all of it is just not true?" And I was kind of taken aback, and as I started to formulate my perfect response, right, it was probably only 3 to 5 seconds of pause, but I was trying to put together the exact perfect response to that. And I paused long enough that another youth group student, Jordan, he stepped in and answered. He said, "You know what? I get it. I've been there too. I have doubts. I have questions. I don't have it all figured out. There's still some things I don't fully understand." But he said, I just kind of got to a spot finally that I said, well, even if all this is not true, even if everything that I've ever been told about Jesus is untrue, my life since following him, like just the things I've learned about him and what he's asked of us, has been way better. You know, my ability to love others, to see others as valuable, to serve others, to put myself aside, it's given me more meaning and more value in my life. So even if I get to the end and it's all a lie, my life here was so much better because of that. But then he said, what if we get to the end and it's not a lie? He said, I feel like the best option is to follow, believe, and do my best to live that out. And either way, at the end, I'm in good company. I'm in good shoes. See, I think that there's a number of us that still have doubts. There's some of us that just have a hard time believing. And that's okay. You're in good company too. See, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, Thomas, was labeled Thomas the Doubter. See, even after Jesus did everything he said he was going to do, and he laid it all out, and he had shared this with all the disciples, Jesus appears like he said he was going to do. But Thomas happened to not be there. So all the disciples are telling Thomas that, hey, Jesus is alive. He did rise again. Thomas says, no, I saw him die. That's not true. He said, no, but he did exactly as he said he would. And Thomas says in John 20:25, he says, unless I see it, unless I see the nail holes and I'm able to put my hand in the sore on his side, I'm not willing to believe it. So if you're still in a spot where you have doubt, where it doesn't all make sense and you're not willing to believe, you're in good company. See, this reminds me of a speech I saw Bob Goff give. See, Bob was saying that a lot of us get hung up on trying to know it all. And he says it's not about knowing it all, it's about living some of it. We don't need to know it all, but we just need to live some of it. And so if you're doubting, I would encourage you, just like my friend Jordan said, he said, you know what, I may not have it all figured out, but I did realize that just me living out some of these principles, my life got better. So instead of trying to figure it all out, maybe we should just take a little bit of time and try to live some of it and just observe your life change. Maybe it'll be better off just by the little bit of change that you can do by following Jesus. See, the story in the Bible doesn't end at verse 25 of chapter 20. Jesus ends up showing up again because Thomas is doubting. And he says to Thomas, in John 20:29, he says, so you believe, Thomas, you believe because now you've seen me. You've seen me with your own 2 eyes. But an even better blessing comes to those who don't see but still believe. See, for those of us who believe, who have been walking with Jesus and living this out, again, like my friend Jordan, we're better to enter into this life with people and walk alongside of them instead of, like I was trying to do, come up with all the reasons that you should believe. See, later in that same speech, Bob Goff said, when people walk into my house, they don't take off their shoes because they see a long list of rules. They don't even know that it might be a rule in my house. But they take their shoes off because they saw a pile of shoes. He said, what if we lived in such a way that people saw the pile of shoes and wanted to come in? So I think that's what my friend Jordan did. He didn't try to stake a claim and convince and list all these rules. He said, look, there's a pile of shoes. And that pile of shoes seemed like something I wanted to be a part of. My life is better because I joined in. If you have disbelief and doubt, don't try to figure it all out and just try to live a little bit of it and see what happens. If you're a believer and you think you have it all figured out, instead of trying to stake that claim, just live in such a way that people see the results. They see that pile of shoes and they want to come in. Try and live either of those things out this week and see what happens. See where Jesus might show up and see if that helps your disbelief. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to follow us each week, click here to subscribe. And if you want to take it a little bit further, click here for discussion materials.